we're really excited to be zooming into one of the big innovation centres of the world in Bengaluru today, and particularly also one for media innovation. And for this newsroom visit hosted by the News Minute, led by its founder and editor, Dhanya Rajendran. Thanks very much for having us today. So at IPI, we've been trying to find ways to create space for the sharing and learning from each other. That's what we've learnt. Is one of the ways that we can really help our local news network that we've been working with over the last couple of years. And we'll talk, these newsroom visits are a really good way to do that. We come in and we hear in depth from today the News Minute, and it allows for, a really informal conversation that can get down to the detail of some of the ways that the News Minute is responding to the challenges that we are all facing. Today, it's an opportunity to learn particularly how the News Minute brings a feminist lens to its coverage, how it uses the latest platforms, how it's been experimenting with audience revenue and with membership models, how it's thinking about advertising, and I think really interestingly is dealing with the issue of diversity, both in its journalism coverage, but also in how it organises its newsroom. And we're really pleased to have the team with us from News Minute, and I'll introduce them briefly now. So we have Dhanya Rajendran, who is the editor and co-founder of the News Minute, and we have Ragamalika Karthikeyan, who is the editor of Special Projects and Experiments, and who doesn't want that title. And we have Ramanathan, who is the head of product and revenue. He'll be, leading the short presentations. And then we also have others from the newsroom in the room with Ragamalika. We have Sudipto Mondal, who's the executive editor, Pooja Prasanna, editorial head for reporting, Anna Isaac, who's the executive producer for video strategy, and Shabir Ahmed, who's the senior news editor. And if any of the questions go in that direction, then they will be here to answer those. And the format for today is that we will have some short presentations from Dhanya, from Ragamalika, and from Ramanathan on how it was founded, the newsroom's organised, its experiments with audience revenue and product and the like. And it's then really, because we keep these sessions to really a small group on purpose, so that we can have a nice conversation and let the conversation go where you want it to go, where News Minute is happy for it to go as well. So with that, I think I will hand over to Dhanya. And just before I do, so just to be clear, I mean, if you want to raise, questions as we go, just do. But after about 20 minutes, we'll get into the conversation. Okay. Thanks so much for having us, Dhanya. And I know your voice is a bit challenged today, but so thank you very much. I'll let you introduce.
Hi, thank you. So we are based out of Bangalore. I have some throat issues, so I'm sorry if you can't hear me, but Raga will do the presentation. So we are based out of Bengaluru. It's a city in southern India. We primarily cover 5 southern states. So it is one part of India. Now, I realize when I go for international conferences and I say it's a small part of India, you're talking about around 200 million people. So it is a large part, population-wise, it is huge. There are a lot of English-reading, English-speaking 5 states here. So we cater to these states. We write news from these states. We started the News Minute in 2014. I think Raga will just take you through the presentation, and then I'll come back again.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, can you hear me? Awesome. So Dhanya has a bad throat, so I'm just going to be doing this presentation for her. I'm just going to share a deck. Okay, I can't share the deck, I think. Will you be able to enable that for me, Ryan or Tiona? It says host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Right, maybe we can make Ragamalika a co-host.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, you'd have to send the PowerPoint to me. Can you just pop it in email real quick?
Sorry, I can just share it with you.
You can't.
You'd have to restart the whole session to amend.
I'll just share it with you. I'll just share it with you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, did you receive it?
Mm-hmm.
Ram, will you be able to share your deck as well? I'll just send you his email ID.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Ryan for that. Sure. So you send it like that.
So just a little bit about us till the screen comes up. As Dhanya said, we're based, our headquarters is in Bangalore, but we have bureaus across South India. We are a small team, but I do know that a lot of other organizations that are part of the IPI are, in terms of numbers, they are smaller. And it's great to sort of meet everybody from different parts of the world. So with the same goal, right? Like independent media and speaking truth to power. So it's great to be part of this network. Awesome. The screen sharing has started and I can stop laughing. Right. So this is, will you be able to start the slideshow? So yeah, so this is our story of how we started and where we want to reach. And there are two versions of the story. The first version is what we tell the public. And that is that when Dhanya and her co-founders wanted to start a news organization way back in 2014, there was no outlet in English covering South India, focusing on South India. The national media in India, the so-called national media in India is very Delhi and Bombay centric. Delhi is the national capital. Bombay is the financial capital of the country. And most of the stories in the media really came from these two places and were from the perspective of these two places. And the rest of us in the country, I mean, there is a Northeast region, there is Central India, there is East, there is West, there is South. We're all seen as satellites, right? Like anything happens here, it's not really national news. But if something happens in Delhi, then it becomes like national. Something happens in Bombay, it's national. So there are many stories. I think Dhanya has spoken about it in many platforms about how she's had to push for a lot of important news stories to be covered by the newsrooms that she's been part of because, you know, they were not considered important because they were not happening in Delhi and Bombay. Right. So this is the story that we tell the public. But since this is a small group, the real story is a little different. Real story is in 2014, Dhanya Rajendran, who's sitting right over here, was unemployed. She had quit her job at one of the top news channels in the country, run by one of the worst journalists that the country has seen, a propagandist by name of Arnab Goswami. She had quit and she was figuring out what to do with her life. And briefly, she considered becoming a party planner because she had a kid and she loves organizing parties. And she thought, yes, let me make this my profession. And she thought, oh, she'll become a party planner. But if anybody knows Dhanya, you meet her for even like a few hours, you know that she's a journalist, right? She is the reporter at heart. She needs to go after the story. She needs everybody to go after the story. And without that, like, there's no peace, right? Like, she can't sleep unless she's done her journalism for the day. So obviously the next course of action was to start a news organization. And she co-opted her husband into this, who put in the money. So his personal money went into running a news organization. Vignesh, if you meet him, will in the first couple of hours tell you how he was planning to retire by the age of 40, but Dhanya spoiled his life and made sure that he came into this very difficult job. And he's our CEO, and he spends most of his days fighting court cases, going behind lawyers, making sure that all the defamation notices that we get, he's replying to them. And we have a lot of hoops to run through, and he's the guy who has to run through the hoops for us. So Dhanya made him do that. This is what love does, apparently. Can we have the next slide, Ryan? So yeah, that's why TNM was started, because Dhanya is a journalist. She didn't want to go back to another television newsroom to work under another megalomaniac. So she decided that she will become the megalomaniac. Right? So the beginning,
I just want to say that because my voice is not good, Raga is using this opportunity to slander me. Yeah.
You'll have to mute. Right. So no, I'm not slandering her. This is the truth. Right. We follow the truth. So yeah, when we began, I wasn't part of the team when TNM started. It was a tiny team. She keeps telling us about the people who were there in the beginning, interns, young people just out of college or still in college. And, initially the plan was, Dhanya says she thought running a news website doesn't need any money. You could just open a website and then that's it. Right? You'll go viral and people start reading you because, you've got www.something.com. And of course, there are lots of stories that we can perhaps share later about why the company was named what it was named. Officially, the company is called Spunk Lane Media Private Limited. Don't ask. And right. So initially it was a tiny team and they thought they were going to do aggregations, right? They're going to be a news aggregator. They're going to look at what all of the other big media houses are doing, like HuffPost, right? So that was the plan, that we'll aggregate news, we'll put something together, we'll have a small team, we'll just clean up stuff and put it out and that's it. But then, like I said, the reason why TNM was started is because Dhanya is a journalist, right? So if a story is happening, a journalist is not the kind of person who will say, Acha, somebody else will do all the work and I'll just aggregate it. That's not going to happen, right? So Dhanya is not that person. Therefore, she started hiring reporters. She took a chance on a lot of young people. So we were, we used to say we are a very young team. They're a very young team until about a couple of years ago. Now we're all really old. And we have a lot of senior people in the organization now. Our leadership team, I'll just come to that in a bit. We have one of the most diverse leadership teams of any news organization in the country. We have 35 journalists. And EWS, yeah, sure. Basically, I think the additional context, what Jackie was talking about, right? We have a feminist sort of point of view of looking at things. The additional context is that when the News Minute started in 2014, that was a time when there was a lot of discourse around gender-based violence in the country. It was just 2 years after a very much publicized gang rape and murder of a young woman in Delhi. Again, because it was Delhi, it became national news. And there were a lot of protests, pre-Me Too stories of workplace sexual harassment, when gender violence in the workplace. And, this was happening across the country. We were all covering it, all newsrooms were covering it. But there was a difference in the News Minute because we were headed by a woman, right? And we were not in Delhi. We were not following what Delhi media was doing. We were not forced to follow the debates, the discourse that was pushed by the Delhi media, right? So that was what was, I think, the next slide, Ryan. And that meant that, there is I don't know if this is the same in other countries, right? In India, you have a crime beat. There is a crime reporter. This person is usually very close to the police. And, in newspapers, you have small single column stories. They'll be able to fill up a lot of these columns with stories about, this happened here, this crime happened there, this crime happened there. It's just the police version. They just repeat it and that's it, right? That's the crime reporter version of what happens. But we were not forced to do that because we are we were a digital medium. We are a digital medium. We didn't have to follow the crime reporter model of doing journalism about gender-based violence, right? So one of the biggest examples is a few years ago, a lot of newspapers published a headline saying woman murders her husband because he was bald, right? And it was supposed to be a funny headline. Oh, look at this woman, so shallow. She murdered her husband because he doesn't have hair on his head, right? And that's the narrative that a lot of news organizations were following. But our reporter on the ground was a woman. Our editor-in-chief is a woman. Most of our editorial desk were women at that point. And we were like, okay, this doesn't sound right? There is something sort of missing over here. This doesn't sound like it's the right story. So we dug a little further and we found out that this was a story of domestic violence and marital rape, right? This woman decided to kill her husband because she was facing marital rape and domestic abuse. So we were able to do these stories. We are able to do these stories because we come from that perspective. We don't have to follow what everybody else is doing. And a lot of the coverage, I mean, there was a murder by a stalker of a young woman in Chennai, and daylight murder, right? It was quite a sensational case. And every time something like this happens on gender-based violence, the first question people ask is, where are the CCTV cameras? Where are the police? Like, is a policeman or a policewoman going to be able to follow around every woman? And is that even like ideal? Is that the kind of society that we want to live in? These are not questions that anybody asked. It was very easy to say, where are the CCTV cameras? Where are the cops? Where are the laws, right? But what are these laws? Why do we have these laws in place? Is just having a law enough? Like, who are the people implementing these laws? What are the biases that the system has, right? What is the main issue underlying all of this? Like patriarchy and structural violence, this is not something that most media organizations wanted to focus on. And we were able to do that. And that's sort of, I think, also part of our journey of, it's not, we're not feminist only when it comes to a story about gender. We try to be feminist in all the work that we do, the conversations that we have in the newsroom, the fights that we have in the newsroom, right? All of this is informed by our own lived experiences, our knowledge, our ideology, and we are constantly learning to do better, right? We are constantly learning to be more intersectional in our approach to issues. We strive to do better every single day, and that is not just in like one story, but across the organization, across like what are the policies that we are bringing in, like what are the conversations that we are having editorially on a daily basis. All of this we are striving to do better. And one of the other points, I don't know, I just like put it in, I don't know if Dhanya and Ram will like sort of agree with me, but when TNM started, we were not taken seriously by the intellectual elite, right? It was started by a woman who's sitting somewhere in Bangalore. She's not in Delhi or Bombay. She's not known as one of those male editors with like, beards with salt and pepper hair and, all of that stuff, the old boys club. She's not part of the old boys club. She doesn't have a pipe, right? She's not smoking using a pipe, right? So she's not she doesn't look like that editor. She doesn't look like that person who has to be taken seriously because, they have like strong words to say and they have a low voice or whatever. She is a young woman who is spunky at spunky media and, she's a go-getter, and she was seen as a reporter. She was not taken. We were not taken. Like TNM was not taken very seriously in the beginning. People would troll us a lot for even small mistakes, right? We get trolled a lot, whereas several other editors could screw up really badly and they'd like, get sympathy, right? So that was the sort of atmosphere in which we started until we started getting taken seriously, right? So today we are at a place where most organizations respect the work that we do. Most intellectuals would look at the work that we do and take it seriously. And we do have a lot of credibility in that sense in the space. Ryan? So just a little bit about how our team is organized. Like I said, we are headquartered in Bangalore. This is the room, like all of us are sitting over here. And Ram is in Chennai. He heads our business team. Editorially, we have an input desk and output desk, and a lot of us are like sort of from a television background. That's where this hangover comes from. Our executive editor Sudipto doesn't agree with the terminology. Ram is the one who came up with the terminology, so there is a lot of like that discussion that goes on. But basically, essentially, we have like people bringing in the news, the stories, and then we have a team that is sort of packaging that, right, making sure that it goes out in the best possible manner that it can. And we have reporters and editors and video editors, producers across Chennai, which is in Tamil Nadu, Kochi in Kerala, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and a bunch of other places. So we have people sitting across South India. And there's a separate breaking news desk at TNM, which was a change we brought about like about a year back, exactly a year back, I think. We decided that we need to give our reporters more time to go get the in-depth stories. Therefore, at the same time, we do need to look at, I mean, Ram will discuss the revenue aspect of it, but we are known for our breaking news, right? So we do have a separate breaking news team, ensuring that our reporters have enough time, and we are also focusing on the breaking news. Most of our journalism comes from staff reporters. We also commission work from freelancers and experts. And the leadership team, Dhanya is here. Dhanya, if you can just like show the camera on the others. Sudipto is our executive editor. Hi, Sudipto. That's Pooja. She's our editorial head for reporting. Anna is here. She has her own screen. She's the executive producer for video strategy. Shabir wasn't able to join us, I think. I'm Raga. I'm the editor for special. Right, there was a confirmation problem. I'm Raga. I'm the editor for special projects and experiments. Vignesh is our CEO and the person who unfortunately got co-opted into this whole project by Dhanya. And Ram is the head for revenue and product. He'll be making the next presentation in just a couple of minutes. So, yeah, Jackie did like sort of mention that we have an intersectional feminist lens, and we have no qualms in calling ourselves a feminist newsroom, right? I think around the time we started, there were the whole discourse in the country and in the media spaces was, is feminism a good word? Is feminism a bad word? Should you be a feminist or should you be a humanist? Right? That was the sort of discourse that was happening. And I think none of us in the organization, in the leadership, have any qualms in saying that we are feminist. Right? We are feminist in our outlook. The work that we do is feminist. We try to be better feminists every day. And we try to live up to these words, right? In every aspect of our work, not just our journalism, but everything that we do inside the organization, whether it's our policies, whether it's the way we are looking at issues, resolving any human resources conflicts in the organization, anything, right? We are looking at it we are trying to be better feminists every day. Most of our employees are women. There is this whole conversation in India for getting 33% reservation for women in the parliament. That's affirmative action for women to make sure that there are more women in politics, right? Like in policy-making positions. However, we joke that we have about 33% reservation for men in TNM. Yeah, I think about 70% women and 30% men. I'm including non-binary persons in the women. We're conscious of how we hire. We believe that the more diverse we are, the stronger our journalism is going to be. We believe in diversity, in the spirit of diversity, not just like the letter of diversity. We've recently hired a person to cover caste as a beat. There was a conversation that we had with the Ground Truth Project. We created 3 positions with the Ground Truth Project. One of them is to cover caste as a beat in a country. I mean, today we had a big judgment about economically weaker sections, whether they should get affirmative action or not. I mean, it's a big debate. I'm not going to go into that. I don't know if it will make sense in such a short conversation. And yeah, we cover the South, right? But I'm just going to throw it to Sudipto right now because he keeps asking us, like, south of what? What are we south of? Are we just like geographically the south of North India? Are we just the south of Delhi? But what are we the south of, right? So that's the big focus as we reach the next stage. Sudipto, south of what?
South of what? No, I mean, this is something which kind of complicates the claim that we are an outlet focused on the South. Because, I think in terms of ideas that contest hegemony, in this case, the hegemony of the North, the discourse of the global South is something that comes in very handy, where we question not just, class or gender-based inequalities and exploitation, but also question it from the perspective of identity, from the perspective of race. Something that excites me is the concept of the fourth world, which is subordinated subpopulations within a given population. In this case, the South. So I feel that while we are contesting the Delhi-centric narrative, there are narratives in the South also which need to be contested, and which can give a lot of material for people to kind of question their existing convictions, right? Like, for example, if there is a party that focuses on, let's say, social justice, right? There's a party in Tamil Nadu, that there are these parties which are based on indigeneity of claims of indigeneity, that southern people are the original inhabitants and things like that, and they lay claim to a pristine past in which supposedly there was no exploitation, there was no oppression and things like that. Now, I feel that when we start asking questions from the perspective of South of what, even so-called progressive or so-called social justice movements can be questioned, can be complicated. And that does what journalism does at its best, which is create a conversation in society. And the more complicated these conversations are, the better, I think, for the reader. So that is one thing that I'm very obsessed with. So South of what?
Right. Thanks, Sudito. I think Ram will take over from here for the second presentation, and after that we can have the questions, I think, Jackie, or however works.
Shall I go ahead?
Yep, go ahead, Ram.
All right. Yeah. So thanks, Raga, Dhanya, and Sudipto, for presenting as close to as possible, the complex realities that the News Minute was born in and continues to live in. So as Raga had put in her presentation, I'll start with the business stuff now. A quick intro of myself before I get into it. I'm the head of revenue and product right now, but I'm a former journalist. And somebody who's humbled by the pressures of having to make money. If many of you listening to this are journalists and are having a tough time trying to understand how to make money out of journalism, I feel your pain. It's not something that's very easy to do, especially at the scale that a lot of organizations like the News Minute operate in. And I've also recently taken over a product role, so I'm starting to understand the pains with tech as well. First slide, Ryan. So quick, intro to how we started. And I wanted to lay this out so that I want to make a lot of people understand that we are where we are, despite having started with almost no idea about how we were going to make any money out of the digital ecosystem. Like Raga had pointed out, Dhanya just wanted to do good journalism, and Dhanya and her husband Vignesh started this company. So when the founders started this company, they just wanted to do that, good journalism, and making money was not the main motivation. The business executives we learned very early were very, very expensive. So we've never hired business executives. We did hire a few salespeople who did not really perform as well as we thought they would. So if you can imagine, right now, our business team, it consists of people who have zero business experience outside of the News Minute. Whatever business experience we have, we've learned here at the News Minute. And that gives me the confidence, it gives us the confidence to tell all of you who are, probably trying to make your own business models work with your journalism, is that at the end of the day, it's just soft skills, common sense, and passion, right? A lot of business executives come up with tall and wide theories about how to make business models work. But these are 2 or 3 things which if you get right, even as a journalist, you can do pretty well with revenue and other things related to the media business. So how we started in terms of revenue, we had programmatic ads, which is, your Google ads, various, ad exchanges. We did our usual plugging in with all of these, global ad agencies, and we got a programmatic ads via them. We had our own direct sales, operations. We had people reaching out to agencies. I myself have gone and spoken to ad agencies and media management agencies and asking them for business. So we used to have brand partnerships. We created branded content. Since we were creating content for our news website anyway, we also started production services. So we would create branded content or content for other brands which needed such services. We'd create short videos and all of these things. We did some consultancies for non-profit projects and related event. Any kind of workshops that could be conducted for something like that. We had the access with the government or various experts, and we could connect them with organizations which needed that kind of a help. Grants were always a part of something which kept us afloat and continue to be. Although this year so far we've got only a few grants, but we're expecting a few more. But grants have always been a bit of a mainstay. And the other thing that we have been doing fairly from the beginning is content syndication. Many content aggregators, different kinds of platforms, they pay us small amounts of money for us to share some bits and pieces of our content with them, or some apps which may take our content for themselves, and they pay us small money. So basically, programmatic ads, display, grants, consultancies, and content syndication. These were the few things that around 2017-18 onwards we started doing them. So I want to give you a quick overview of our journey. This is going to be like I'm talking about all this over a period of about 3 or 4 years, what has happened, and I'm going to give you a quick snapshot. So initially we focused a lot on traffic. We did a lot of content, keeping in mind the traffic. We never really moved away from our core, aim, which was to do good journalism. But yes, traffic used to be a motivation at the beginning. And that's why we depended a lot on programmatic ad revenues. There was a stage when about 30 to 40% of our revenue was coming from programmatic ads. Not anymore. We don't really depend on chasing traffic anymore. And that's why programmatic revenue now just runs on autopilot. We have our ad slots all over the place, but whatever money they make us, we don't take that kind of pressure. And that's the game we wanted to stop playing, and we've stopped playing that game now. We used to pitch for a lot of direct display campaigns, which is these ads. We would reach out to a brand directly and tell them that, hey, instead of going via Google or some other ad exchange, we'd work directly with them. But there were lots of other issues with that, which is, performance. A brand would come and ask us, how many leads can you generate? How many impressions, how many clicks can you generate, or how many registrations can you drive for us? So these kinds of performance pressures started building up when we started doing our direct display campaigns. So we've stopped doing that now as well. With general news, performance can be extremely difficult. So we used to invest a lot in developing new brand partnerships and developing new clients for branded content. So, we'd never stop with just the few clients that we have. We'd always be going out there and meeting more and more new clients and getting more and more, brands on board. But now we have kind of focused our attention to the few clients who trust us. In markets where we have high visibility. I'll give you some example. For instance, Raga mentioned how Delhi and Bombay are the big centers where the big media is. And we used to go there and we used to sell ourselves right, left, and center. But we got some success, but we realized that down south here in Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, where people recognize them more, and even if business is not as good as Bangalore and Delhi, we should focus here and do our work here, right? So we've kind of shifted our focus to where we have high visibility and social capital, and to driving repeat businesses from those few clients, right? Because you don't realize that there's a lot of cost involved in acquiring new clients, including sometimes in the previous one, Ryan, I haven't finished that. The previous one, yeah. So driving repeat businesses from the same clients. We started with 0 reader revenue, but now we're pivoting to make that a central pillar, right? We really want to focus on making reader revenue one of our main revenue streams. We're starting to do a few more events. We'll continue to do non-profit and special projects and consultancies. And we'll continue to pitch for grants, which have some social impact. And we continue with some kind of content syndication, but we're kind of limited on that front. Yeah, Ryan, the next one. All right. So I can't give you specifics on the numbers, but I think, if I share numbers, you'll have a bit of an idea of how we do. So our yearly revenue is about below 1 million USD, which is a huge number. It can be 100,000 or it can be 900,000, but I'm not at liberty to share the exact number with you. So I'll just stick to a broad name, a broad range. We've had our ups and downs when it comes to what kind of share our different revenue verticals have. So, I was just thinking about making this presentation today, and I saw that there was a huge, massive spike every year. So I'm just going to give you a picture of what it is, closer to what it is right now. And our programmatic revenues are now down to about 20% of our overall revenue. But like I said, it used to be 30-40% at some point. Our direct sales are up to about 50-60% of our overall revenue. It wasn't as high. It used to be about 20-30-40% earlier. But this year, we've kind of ramped up our efforts in kind of working with brands directly and focusing, like I said, on the few brands who trust us and getting more revenue from them. Reader revenue, we started with zero, actually. I mean, we didn't start at all. And then when we started during the pandemic, we started at a healthy 10%. But now it's kind of plateaued, and we've had a bit of a tough year on that because we're also trying to regroup. We're trying to pivot. There have been lots of regulatory hurdles in India. Like the year 2 of our reader revenue journey, we got a huge bump just from recurring payments, right? We had 1 month where we had a huge jump in payments. And when we looked back and then looked at the data, it's because recurring credit card payments now this year in India have been disabled. It's something which you probably won't be facing in your countries. So that has had a huge problem in India. So we're trying to figure out what kind of things we need to do to make reader revenue a better part of, better share of our overall revenue. And then grants and special projects, it's 20% or so usually. This year, so far, we've got a few small ones, but we're expecting a couple of big projects. So I think it will remain in that 20-30% healthy bracket. And the rest is about 5% or so we do syndication. So this is kind of the split of the revenue that we do. The next slide, Ryan. So what kind of lessons have you, Brian, the previous one, I think you've gone to the next one. Yeah, this is that one. So what kind of lessons, it's quick ones, I can share with you what we have learned so far. So one thing is that we can never depend on just one thing, right? For instance, it can't be just advertising. It can't be just programmatic advertising. It can't be just reader revenue. It can't be just grants. You have to have an agile and hybrid model which easily responds to changing market scenarios. The minute you realize there's something out there which is working and something where you can drive value for somebody else, or you can make money in a different way, you need to have an operational model which can respond to that and change accordingly. There's nothing right now in digital media which you can say is going to stay the same forever. So don't build a business model dependent entirely on another company's business. This, for instance, don't depend just on Google Ads. Don't pivot to video just because Facebook says so. Don't just start depending on influencers. For instance, influencer marketing is a big deal in India now, and we see a lot of people doing influencer marketing partnerships. And I genuinely feel that at some point it's going to die a death as well. So don't build anything which is depending on some other company doing something right. So we need to drive, that's next point being, we need to drive most of the revenue from our core functions. So this is something that we've learned of it, and we're trying really hard to execute now. And our core function is journalism, right? Even if I am the head of revenue and product here, my past is in journalism, and all our hearts here beat for journalism. So we're trying to figure out that if journalism is what we're really good at, then we need to see how we can make money out of that directly without having to do other things like, branded content and programmatic advertising and things like that, because then the pressure and the focus goes to making those things happen well. Right? So how can you make money out of your core function? Be lean, something which I will always credit our CEO Vignesh for, something he's taught me, and I think this lesson will stay with me all my life, that, spending very little money, as less money as you can, is really important, especially in the digital media ecosystem now, because when you're burning money, you feel great, but after that, it's a bad downer. So we shouldn't spend too much time depending, previous one, Ryan, I think it went to the next slide. Yeah. We shouldn't depend too much on intermediaries, right? So don't depend too much on apps, on Facebook or YouTube and those things. Anywhere there's an intermediary between you and your audience, and if you're depending too much on them, then there is going to be some problem at some point. And then the last one, no lesson stays true forever. Things change and we have to change along with them. So these are our lessons so far. The next one, right? Yeah. So right now, we are on what I call, the audience revenue mission. We are revamping our content and our product to ensure a great user experience for audiences, which means we are deprioritizing ads. We're deprioritizing anything which we think is not something which is going to give us a great perception among our readers. And we have a few guiding principles here, which I've shared with you. For great audience revenue, even if your reach is slow, if you're able to create great impact with your content, then that's good enough, right? You need not have 10 million people reading your story, but if you're able to convert 10,000 people into readers, then it's great for you, right? So that's one guiding principle. The second is content is king, like they always say, but in today's this thing, content is king, but product is queen, right? The kind of user experience that you're able to give to people is really, really important, not just to improve their experience, but also to make sure that the kind of experience that they have converts into money for you. For instance, if there is too much friction in payment, if the page does not load quickly enough, if anybody's having a poor product experience, then you're losing money there. So product is very important. You have to create editorial products which create habits amongst people, right? Like Raga runs a newsletter called Here's the Thing, which is a weekly newsletter, and whatever happens on Thursday, it goes out. So you have to create a habit amongst your readers of wanting to get back to your particular time, every week or every day, and they need to be hooked to that, and it has to be high quality content. Data-informed decision-making, something we're terrible at. We haven't made enough investments in data or understanding, and we're fast realizing that's something that we need to do. It's extremely difficult if you come from the kind of backgrounds that we do. It can be very hard. Data can be very, overwhelming sometimes, but we've realized that it's something very, very important. Even if you have just data of just 100 people, it can give you great insights. So data-informed decision-making is important, and personalized engagement. This is something which is in our DNA. I think it's starting from Dhanya. She's out there on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram, engaging with everybody. And that's something which audiences really appreciate. So if you want somebody to pay for your journalism or for being a part of your membership or subscription program, they'll appreciate the fact that you're being engaged there and being engaged with it in a personal manner. And if you have leaders who are doing that, then it will be a great thing. So, I mean, this is what I had. I didn't want to take too much time talking about too many things, but there is definitely a lot of other things that we can discuss, but I hope I have at least given you a large overview, and this is of help. I'm happy to answer questions now. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. That was really very interesting. Now I have a bunch of questions, but I want to see, will you take this presentation down, Ryan? Yeah, I'm going to open it up though first. And so anyone who wants to share anything, as I said, this is, really, it's an informal conversation. We're sitting in the newsroom. What do you want to know? Any thoughts on any of that?
I would like to ask about these brand partnerships. What were the greatest challenges to find the partners in your company?
Yep, Branislav, can you put your video on if possible? If not, it's okay, but it would be great to see you. And can you just tell us where you're from?
No, can you see me?
Yeah, great.
Okay, I'm from Slovakia, and I am a director of Slovak news agency. And now we started to push much more like this kind of professional partnerships, brand partnerships. And we have we have like 2 million visitors in our websites per month. And it creates us a lot of challenges, but we consider it as the best source of revenue for us. Yes, so I want to ask you maybe what kind of challenges you have with searching for commercial partners, and how you do it, and what's the best what's the service they demand the most?
Right. So Indian, Indian advertising landscape is vast. We've kind of dealt with very, very different kinds of advertisers over. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to put a finger on a particular kind of thing that they've appreciated. But I would say that we were always able to get one step in, right? We were always able to get into the door. But the biggest challenge always was, did they find value in us to keep returning to us and working with us in the long term, right? So that happens only if we are able to drive business for them. So one of the biggest challenges in working with brands is that you have to keep innovating. You have to keep getting back to them with newer and newer products, with newer and newer ways of thinking, new innovations, and something new to the table, because they want to keep experimenting. They want to keep doing new things. So from a brand partnerships perspective, one of the biggest challenges for us was that, right? How do we keep the interest of our brand partners alive in the long run? Other than that, we've had lots of other challenges. For instance, if the brand is very, very marketing driven and number driven, then they can put a lot of effort, pressure on you to perform, saying that can you ensure so many registrations? Can you give me so many leads? Can you ensure that so many people will buy a particular product just because I advertise on you? So those kind of performance pressures can also be very demanding, and that's something which in most cases we were not able to withstand.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And when you were talking about innovation and services, so what kind of services is the the highest added value and for your partners? Yes,
Right.
was the best utility for them? Like what are they interested into the most?
Right. So it really depends on the partner. If there are people who are coming to us just for branding, which is they just want visibility, then if you're able to create content for them, which has organic reach, which travels on its own, right? Then that's something which every brand will appreciate. So the pressure for creating content with your brand partners, something that will go viral organically without you having to get any paid media, is something that they will really, really appreciate. So, and I'm talking about branded content per se, but brand partnerships can be other things. You can do offline events, online events, and things like that. But everybody appreciates organic, natural virality or reach. If a piece of content that you're creating for them travels on its own and everybody's talking about it, they love it.
Ram, if you can give an example of that.
So I just wanted to say that when Ram talks about branding partners, it's all different partners. Like, for example, we partner with a lot of hospitals. We create content for hospitals. Like what are the different things the hospital does, or there'll be a doctor who does a video with us about a particular disease or about a surgery. We had done one partnership with an NGO on human trafficking. So we basically created these kits which were given to police officers in one state on how to deal with human trafficking. So that's one sort of a partner. Then the hospitals are brand partners. We work with OTT platforms when movies come, for example, it's movies about real life people. We write stories around it. So partnership is all different kinds. Like, we've experimented with a lot of different kinds of partnerships.
Can I ask you, just going back now to all, or whoever is best to answer this, but thinking about like your audience, because as you say, you have like, I guess the market, or the population of the states, the 5 states that you're covering is more than 200 million people. So how do you think about who your audience is, and who you're serving when you're creating these products? And I wondered also about, because you have such mission-driven journalism around, feminism and diversity and things like that. How important is it that you explain to your community, your audience, and also to, potential business partners, or not-for-profits like hospitals who are also part of the community? How do you take them with you and explain what you're doing and what's important and why they should support you?
Ram.
Well, I think the last part maybe Raga could also answer, but so we kind of have 2 phases there, right? When we do our branded content and when we do any kind of brand partnership, we communicate a little differently. And when we speak to our audiences directly as a news platform, and when we request them to support us, we focus on the journalism more. So this dichotomy is something that we have always struggled with, right? Which is that on the one hand, you're kind of dishing out advertising focused communication, but on the other hand, you are wanting to speak directly to audiences and asking them to fund us, which is why we're now, and it's a difficult thing to do, when you're balancing advertising with the kind of communication that you want to push out so that people can pay you directly. So how have you been doing that? I don't know. We've just been doing both simultaneously and see what sticks. Whenever we push out advertising, we just do it. And sometimes we have people complaining, saying, hey, this is not good. We don't really like it. And we just don't respond, or we're just stuck. And just,
one of the things is Ram's whole thing on cryptocurrency. I think we get a lot of readers saying it's a scam, why are you doing crypto content? And we have newsroom fights about whether crypto is a scam and NFTs and all of that stuff. We have disagreements, but we let business do what they want to do, and the editorial does what we have to do.
So Jackie, I think Anna, last year one change we brought in is also to make the video section more stronger. So Anna, can you just quickly explain? And then Pooja will also tell your question about who is your reader, right? Who are you looking at? I think Pooja can take that. Yeah.
Hopefully you can hear me. So we started focusing a lot more on YouTube, actually since last year, as Raga pointed out. And we have, Raga has a newsletter. There are at the moment, I think about 3 or 4 shows that we have. And we've also launched separate YouTube channels for our Tamil audience and for our Malayalam audience, which are 2 different South Indian languages. And of course, these are, we're still growing these audiences, but we're hoping with a show on each platform, it will bring an audience. And because the audience is so diverse and so large, we're hoping that what we have to say, which is different from what is already out there on these, on YouTube Tamil or YouTube Malayalam, for example, that we will be able to bring in a new audience that will appreciate the kind of content that we do in English, that we can sort of replicate in these languages.
So essentially, we were looking at how we can expand the group of people who consume news in India. Traditionally, those who did consume news were mostly male. They were from a particular age group, and also the kind of news they were consuming were all very, very similar. So while we are covering even similar events as other media organizations, what we did do is bring a certain perspective that both Raga and Dhanya have been speaking about. It cannot always be from the male perspective. Also from the southern perspective, what does it mean to have the same news? How is it relevant to somebody in the southern part of India? So we have tried to expand, people who consume news, also how they consume news, what are the issues that they can relate to, how they want news to be delivered to them. All of these things are, have been our focus, and we are continuing to expand this while not losing focus on who we are as a news organization.
Satarupa.
Jackie couldn't hear.
Hi. Can I go? Dhanya, were you saying something? Okay. So hi everybody. For those who don't know Citizen Matters, we are also an independent civic news platform based in India, headquartered in the same city that Dhanya is in right now. And in fact, some of my colleagues have actually physically been in the newsroom, in the News Minute newsroom, but I am unfortunately not based in Bengaluru, so I've never had a chance to meet any of you. Quick question, and this is to do with your editorial products and special projects. I was wondering what kind of testing you do before you launch a new product, and if you have a separate team for that, or is it something very, integrated with your editorial decision making? I can't hear you, Raga. You're on mute, I think.
Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear me now. I mean, Ram and I are laughing, and Dhanya is like struggling not to laugh because this is a difficult question, right? Like, difficult problem for a lot of us news organizations that are not loaded with money. And I know that like for the past few years, like since the pandemic, right? Like I've personally, because we launched the membership program during the pandemic, I was part of the launch team, and we have personally attended a lot of these sessions where, you know, somebody from New York Times or you know, Wall Street Journal will come and tell you that you need to, like, you know, have this thing in the tech and you need to have that product, and we really don't have the money for all of that, right? So our tech team is outsourced, and Dhanya is a very optimistic person, so she thinks that, you know, things will happen like immediately. For instance, I think we are on the way to sort of starting a paywall for some of our stories. But we haven't been able to launch that yet because tech happens when tech happens, right? Like that's sort of the conclusion that I have come to. So it's not something that you can predict. Tech people work at their own pace. They definitely don't work at journalist pace. They definitely don't work at breaking news pace. So things happen when they happen, and we just like sort of go with the flow. We try really hard. We appoint Ram as the head of product, and we hope that he can do some magic and get our product to look great. Like we all have complaints internally, externally. Like, you know, product is one of the biggest pain points for everybody. And you know, suddenly, like, you know, somebody in the newsroom will say, yeah, our executive editor will say that, you know, in this particular story, I want this particular thing to look in this particular way. And I'm like, bro, not possible because we don't have the tech, right? Our product isn't great. So yeah,
I think Sadrupa, you also mentioned editorial products, right?
Editorially also, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like she meant also newsletters or whatever you do, the testing for that.
Exactly. So
the testing for that,
So
yeah,
if
we try whatever, like your A/B testing on MailChimp. We are on a MailChimp grandfather this thing. Yeah, Ram.
I mean, I think what you're trying to understand is how can you get to know a little earlier whether something is working or not, right? I mean, that's one way of putting your question, if I can.
Yeah, to some extent, and also how much importance would you place on editorial intuition in that?
A lot. That's what I was getting to. So you have to go by your gut a lot. It's not scientific, it's not data driven, like I said. But when it comes to editorial products, I think the understanding of your editorial team, you know, for instance, a lot of times Raga, Dhanya, or me, or Sudipto do disagree on a lot of things. So there is no way to do it, but the editorial leadership's gut on saying, okay, I feel like this will work, is something you have to try at least. So all you can hope and pray is that you don't spend too much money and effort in trying something which fails at the end of the day. But we can be cautious about it. But intuition is very important. So if you have a product, you can start small, and that's where digital helps us, right? It's that, you know, you can do the entry barrier for trying experiments is so low. If you want to do a newsletter, just start with 10 people and see how it goes. If out of 10 people, 8 people are telling you that's very good, then maybe it is good. So that's at least a good starting point.
And I feel something.
Can I just?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. I think Satrupa, we shouldn't always go by feedback. Some things will not work. No matter what you do, some things will not work. But you just do it because you have to do it, because you believe in it. Nobody believe it.
Okay. Look, I'd like to continue the conversation, but I understand that there's another group ready to jump into our Zoom channel. So we're going to have to end it, unfortunately. But yeah, because I could talk for a lot longer. But thank you so much, the News Minute team. It's been great to learn some more in depth and hear, you know, about the, you know, both product, revenue, the journalism mission, how you think about, you know, the future. And yeah, we have to sign out. So
thank you.
Any parting words, thoughts?
GNM docs. So you guys can, if anybody have any questions, I think easy to reach us on email. Just you can email us. Not Dhanya.
I think you can just say that you can start a business with or without a business plan.
It's a great example of really finding your way, right? Yeah. Okay.
If anyone has any questions, that the Slack channel has everyone here, I believe, in there. So if you have questions, and you can just direct them into either a public channel or directly to an individual. But I would definitely encourage you all to join the group there and start a discussion with even a broader public across the group. And then maybe one final note from our side: we do have another newsroom visit on the 23rd of November of the month. So we can circulate that link as soon as possible. But just to let you know that we'll be doing this another time in a couple of weeks from now.
Yeah, and that's a good idea, actually, to post any follow-up questions in the Slack, and I'm sure the News Minute team will get back to us, get back to those. That would be great. Okay, thank you so much, everybody.